Yo, what is going on, boys? It is me, Rye, and we're talking Banlist predictions, baby. Oh my goodness, let's get into it. If you've never been around for Banlist season before, it pretty much solely comes from the KCC slash World Qualifiers, whatever you want to call them. Pretty much a week or 2 weeks after we get a ban list after these events are hosted. We're using duellinksmeta.com to find the top 100 decks, or at least the ones that were submitted. And I just wanted to talk about some of the decks that topped and what I think the ban list is going to look like based on these results. Now, quite clearly, when you scroll through this, you see a lot of fucking Orcust. They are everywhere, and it is quite obvious that Orcust is going to be one of the decks that goes up to the slaughter. Um, Especially when you start seeing things like Pendulum Orcust with Tower of Babel, and other crazy shenanigans, going for the top. We do see Speedroid as well, and we'll talk about them and some other interesting techs like the Garbage Lord tech that people ended up playing. But for the most part, it is very, very, very heavily Orcust dominated. Even a deck like Rockets, their sole purpose is exists to take out Orcust, right? That not that they do bad against other decks, but their biggest accomplishment is that they can take out Orcust by banishing Mermaid, which is probably my first prediction. Mermaid's going, bro. Now, I want to say this before, I go too far into it. I always believe that when ban lists happen, the aim should be to nerf a deck so that it's balanced with the rest of the current metagame. So one deck isn't pulling so far ahead that no matter what deck gets released, it doesn't actually, make anyone buy the new decks, and everyone's just playing the same old tier one, tier zero deck, that's currently out. That is not Konami's philosophy. So I will try to differentiate between what I think should happen and what Konami will probably do. As much as I can. So just try to keep that in your mind that not necessarily everything I say will be what I think should happen. It's just my prediction of what might happen. Because I think Orcust is a fun deck. If you take away the idea of it being like, borderline tier zero and it's everywhere and it's dominating and shitting on every single community tournament, which it is, it is just a fun deck to physically play. So I would kind of be sad to see it completely gone. I would prefer to see it still in the meta in some capacity, just not, the only best deck, and then the entire meta revolves around countering that one best deck. So Mermaid, I think, is going. It's banned in pretty much every other format. It is banned in every other format, and it is what enables these kind of splashy plays. Now, obviously, that's always an exception to the rule. For example, you saw the Odd Eyes Pendulum, playing the Tower of Babel to get that disruption on their opponent's turn. But for the most part, the Mermaid is in there to help boost the consistency, and which allows them to play back row and all that. So I think that's a pretty good first hit. And if you asked me even like 2 weeks ago if I thought that would be the only hit required to really bring them down, I would have said yes. But to be honest, I think even the Tower of Babel version is still highly, highly oppressive. It's searchable. It makes your Dingirsu quick effect. It makes all your effects quick effect, right? Your Galatea quick effect. It's just all these cards suddenly are quick effects. And if you don't have basically Cosmic Cyclone, because you can't destroy with like MST or something, right? If you don't have like a Cosmic Cyclone, it gets very difficult to kind of out the Tower of Babel. Granted, if you do have Cosmic Cyclone, you see your opponent chain like 5 cards in a row, right? But overall, it's just a rough time, right? With Tower of Babel now proving itself in the KC Cup as well in the Odd Eyes Pendulum version. So I would say Mermaid ban, and then I would even take it a step further and put this Orcust Nightmare to 1. This deck cannot play without Orcust Nightmare. Nightmare is required to send your other cards from the deck to the graveyard to enable and further your Orcust plays. Even without the Mermaid, because that's like the common play, right? The Mermaid into the Nightmare, and then the Nightmare sends another card. Even if you didn't have the Nightmare, you would still need that Orcust Nightmare to help you facilitate your plays further, and I think it's required enough that we can put it at a limit 1 and stop people from playing Tower of Babel. Either that or Horror Horror. It doesn't really matter which one gets hit. I think you hit the Nightmare because it's a rare. So it has less impact. I'm just thinking of the free-to-play brothers out there. Don't hit the Horror, it's too expensive. That's kind of where my mindset is with that. And then I think the deck will be, balanced as it can be. It'd still be insanely broken. People might play, more than one Orcust return to potentially draw more cards. You just will see probably a little bit less back row, but overall it would still be the same deck with just a little bit of a consistency hit, so they're not constantly shitting on you every single time that they go, leaving them open to more, tier 3, tier 2, and even rogue decks to actually beat them. So that's my heavy Orcust prediction. I think, decks like Rockets don't need hits. If you nerf the Orcust decks, I think these decks will naturally fall in play viability if those decks get nerfed. So I think overall hitting Orcust would solve quite a few of the format's issues. Moving beyond that, I think the only other realistic hit that you're kind of looking at would be something related to the Clear Wings Synchro acceleration. Now, I would prefer that they just address the skill, because this skill is absolutely busted. This is like Galaxy Eyes level of busted, but way better than Galaxy Eyes ever was. And talking about the skill purely, not the two decks. We're not comparing the decks here. It just enables so many of your plays. Realistically, I would love to see some level of restriction added to the skill, so that, because when you think about it, right, when you think about this skill, does this skill have to be this good for this deck to be a viable meta deck? And the answer is yeah, a little bit. Without both of these skills, the deck becomes extremely bricky. Or you'd have to play so many more Speedroid cards that you have less space for other things to facilitate plays. You end up dying to back row if you go second, etc., etc., etc. So it kind of has to be this powerful. Knowing Konami, this is my prediction. Knowing Konami, they're going to probably make it so you can only activate one of these skills per turn, and then do something stupid like put high Speedroid Kite Drake to 1 or something like that. So you can't play it with your Crystal Wings. So you either are OTK deck or you're, a negate-based deck with this. That's probably what Konami is going to do, because after that Stardust nerf, I don't trust Konami and Synchro decks, What I would like to see them do, though, is I would like them to make Clearwing Acceleration, instead of just, you could only activate one of these skills per turn, make it so that, each skill has a restriction, right? So maybe if, if you have a Clearwing Synchro, you get to play a Speedroid dice card, right? But if you do that, you're locked into wind monsters for the rest of the turn, which would actually, Zade King would be totally fine with his build here that he has. But it would stop certain decks that play, the Stardust Charge Warrior or the Zetas or something like that. Or maybe make it so if you do use that skill, you can only summon dragon types, that turn. So you can't summon some of these other options that you have. So that way, if you don't brick, because I think the biggest problem I see with this deck is sometimes you'll see a Speedroid hand and you're not bricked at all. You're just not bricked, right? And then they still use the skill anyway because it's free resource, and now their hand is just full of extra material for follow-up plays. Alternatively, they could make these skills only activatable on your first turn. Could be a very interesting choice as well. That way, it only exists for, the turn 1 consistency boost, and then after that, it's just not, it's not something to continuously give you power. It's just something that's just, kind of there for turn 1, and that's it. So yeah, I would like to see some sort of hit to the skill. Nothing too crazy. I think as a added restrictions is the way to go. But realistically, my predictions is just make you use, one of the skills per turn and lock you into that, while also hitting probably another one of your synchro monsters, probably putting it to a limit 1 or something. Or they might even go as far as, putting like a limit 3 on double Yo-Yo or something, so that you can't play like limit 3 back row with the deck or something like that. In terms of anything else, I think everything else is pretty much just revolving around Orcust being in the metagame. Garbage Lord is literally here to stop, Seal Tomb Orcusts, by paying life points, so they could never Seal Tomb you. And everything else, we did see some a pointer of the Red Lotus that was recently nerfed in the TCG. I don't really think that's going to be something they attach right now. Maybe in the future, but not right now. That's pretty much it. I guess if I wanted to give a hot take for the clickbait, if you will, I think before the end of this year, Book of Moon may see Limit 3 potential. We kind of ignore Book of Moon just because it's everywhere and everyone has Book of Moon, but it is on the same power level of Compulse and Crackdown and, Ice Dragon. It just came out before they were willing to limit 3 selection box cards, and if it were to come out today, it would immediately be a limit 3 card. So my hot take is this card's going to limit 3 sometime this year, and I have a feeling it's gonna be, if it's before Worlds, that would be a huge meta shakeup. So that's gonna be my hot take. Don't put too much salt to that one. Everything else I actually thought of, Book of Moon. That's the hot take, okay? That's the hot take, okay? All right, boys, that's gonna be it from me. Let me know if you agree. If you disagree, leave a comment down in the YouTube. This is all predictions, so it's just all memes and fun. Try to be nice to each other in the comments. Join the Discord, play in the tournaments. I'm out. Goodbye, boys.